A billionaire takes her son to dinner, then sees homeless. Single dad with his disabled daughter. Victoria Chen stepped out of her midnight blue Bentley, her Louboutins clicking against the pavement of Mario's bistro. The reservation had taken weeks to secure. Her 8-year-old son, Daniel, bounced beside her, his bow tie slightly crooked despite her best efforts. But what happened next would shatter her perfectly planned evening and change 4 lives forever. If you're loving this story of unexpected compassion, hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and share this with someone who needs to believe in kindness again. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. Mum, why is that little girl sitting on the ground? Daniel's voice cut through the evening air before they even reached the restaurant entrance. Victoria's gaze followed her son's pointing finger. There, huddled against the brick wall beside the bistro's glowing windows, sat a man who looked like life had beaten him down and left him for dead. His clothes hung off his thin frame, stained and torn. But it wasn't him that stopped Victoria's breath. It was the child beside him. A girl, maybe 6 years old, sat in a battered wheelchair that looked held together by hope and duct tape. Her face was gaunt, but her eyes sparkled with a brightness that didn't belong to someone living on the streets. Victoria Chen wasn't just any businesswoman. She was the CEO of Chen Pharmaceuticals, a company worth $3 billion. She'd built her empire from nothing after her husband died, working 18-hour days while raising Daniel alone. She knew struggle. She knew sacrifice. But she'd forgotten what rock bottom looked like until this very moment. Come on, Daniel. Let's go inside. Victoria tugged her son's hand gently, but he planted his feet. Can we help them? Please, Mum. The father noticed them staring. His face flushed with shame, and he tried to shift his body to shield his daughter from their view. That small gesture of dignity in the face of absolute poverty cracked something in Victoria's chest. She made a decision that would have horrified her board of directors. Excuse me, Victoria called softly, approaching slowly so she wouldn't startle them. My son and I were just about to have dinner. Would you and your daughter join us? The man's eyes widened with suspicion and disbelief. Ma'am, we can't. I don't have any money. I didn't ask if you had money. I asked if you'd join us for dinner. Victoria's voice was firm but warm. My name is Victoria. This is Daniel. The little girl in the wheelchair spoke up, her voice surprisingly strong. Daddy, I'm really hungry. Those 4 words broke whatever resistance the man had left. His shoulders sagged, and tears pooled in his eyes. I'm Marcus, he whispered. This is my daughter, Lily. Victoria gestured toward the restaurant entrance. The hostess at the podium looked like she'd swallowed a lemon when she saw them approaching, but one sharp look from Victoria silenced any objections. They were seated in a corner booth. Victoria had specifically requested privacy. She helped Marcus ease Lily from her wheelchair into the booth, noticing how carefully he handled his daughter, how his hands trembled from what she suspected was hunger, not just emotion. Daniel immediately started chatting with Lily about his favorite cartoons, and within minutes, the little girl was giggling. The sound was pure magic, and Victoria watched Marcus's face transform as he heard his daughter laugh. When did you 2 last eat? Victoria asked quietly while the kids were distracted. Marcus stared at the menu like it was written in a foreign language. Yesterday morning. Someone gave us half a sandwich. Victoria flagged down the waiter. We'll have 2 of everything on the children's menu for the kids. For the adults, bring the ribeye steak dinner. 2 orders, with all the sides. And please bring water and orange juice immediately. Ma'am, that's too much, Marcus protested weakly. My restaurant, my rules tonight, Victoria replied with a small smile. When the food arrived, Victoria had to stop herself from crying as she watched Marcus try to eat slowly, with dignity, even though his body was clearly screaming for him to devour everything in sight. Lily ate with more enthusiasm, tomato sauce from her pasta covering her chin, while Daniel made her laugh with silly faces. Between bites, Marcus began to talk, not because Victoria pushed, but because something about her calm presence made the words spill out like water from a broken dam. I was an engineer, he said quietly. Mechanical engineer. Had a good job, a house, a wife. Then Lily got sick, rare form of muscular dystrophy. The medical bills destroyed us. My wife, she couldn't handle it. She left when Lily was 3. His voice cracked. I tried to keep working, but Lily needed round-the-clock care. I lost my job, lost the house, lost everything except her. Victoria listened without interrupting, her business mind already calculating, planning, strategizing. I've been applying for jobs, but nobody wants to hire someone with no address, no phone, no clean clothes, and I can't leave Lily alone to work anyway. She needs me. Marcus wiped his eyes roughly. I'm sorry. You didn't ask for my life story. Don't apologize, Victoria said firmly. Ever. Daniel tugged on Victoria's sleeve. Mum, can they come home with us? Lily could have the guest room, and Mr. Marcus could have the one next to it. Out of the mouths of babes, Victoria thought. Sometimes children saw solutions that adults, with all their complicated reasoning, completely missed. She looked at Marcus, who was shaking his head. We couldn't possibly. You could, Victoria interrupted, and you will. Just for tonight. Let's get Lily somewhere warm and safe, and tomorrow we'll figure out next steps. No arguments. Marcus looked like he might collapse from relief and disbelief all at once. As they left the restaurant, Victoria carrying leftover boxes, while Marcus pushed Lily's wheelchair, she caught sight of their reflection in the window. A billionaire CEO, her privileged son, a homeless father, and his disabled daughter. They looked like the setup to a bad joke. Instead, they looked like the beginning of something extraordinary. The drive to Victoria's estate in her Bentley was quiet, except for Daniel and Lily's whispered conversation in the back seat. Marcus sat rigid in the passenger seat, staring out the window like he might wake up any moment from this impossible dream. His reflection in the glass showed a man fighting between hope and the crushing fear that hope brings when you've been disappointed too many times. Victoria's home sat on 5 acres in the most exclusive neighborhood in the city. When the iron gates swung open and the mansion came into view, Marcus actually gasped. This is where you live? It's just a house, Victoria said simply, though she knew how absurd that sounded. The Mediterranean-style villa had 12 bedrooms, an indoor pool, and a staff of 7. Come on, let's get you both settled. Her housekeeper, Rosa, met them at the door. To her credit, she didn't even blink at the sight of Marcus and Lily. Victoria had always hired people who understood that compassion mattered more than appearances. Rosa, could you prepare the blue guest suite? And perhaps draw a warm bath for Lily. We'll need some clean clothes, too. Victoria turned to Marcus. I think my late husband's clothes might fit you. They're just sitting in storage. Marcus opened his mouth to protest, but Victoria held up her hand. Please, they're not doing anyone any good in boxes. While Rosa took Lily upstairs with Daniel trailing behind, Victoria led Marcus to the kitchen. She made tea, something her own mother had done whenever life felt overwhelming. The ritual of it, the warmth, the patience required to let it steep properly. Why are you doing this? Marcus finally asked, wrapping his hands around the mug like it might anchor him to reality. Victoria considered the question carefully. 7 years ago, my husband died in a car accident. Sudden, brutal. left me with a 5-year-old son and a company that was hemorrhaging money. I had people who could have helped me, wealthy friends, business associates, but most of them vanished when things got hard. They didn't want the messiness of my grief or my struggles. She took a sip of her tea. One person helped me. My husband's former secretary, a woman named Ruth, who made barely above minimum wage. She showed up every single day for 6 months, helping with Daniel, bringing casseroles, just sitting with me when I couldn't stop crying. She had almost nothing, but she gave me everything. Marcus's eyes glistened with understanding. I never forgot that, and I never will. So when my son asked why we couldn't help you, I realized I'd been so busy building my empire that I'd forgotten the most important thing. We're supposed to help each other. Victoria smiled softly. Besides, Daniel was right. You need help, and we have the resources to provide it. It's actually quite simple. Upstairs, they could hear Lily's delighted laughter as she splashed in the bathtub. The sound made Marcus's face crumple with emotion. I haven't heard her laugh like that in months, he whispered. She's been so sick, and the streets are so cold and dangerous. I've been terrified every single night that something would happen to her, that I couldn't protect her. Victoria reached across the table and squeezed his hand briefly. You've protected her beautifully. You're still here, still fighting for her. That's everything. They talked for hours that night. Marcus told her about his daughter's medical condition, how the disease was progressing, how he'd been rejected by 17 homeless shelters because they couldn't accommodate Lily's wheelchair and medical needs. He told her about the job interviews he'd gone to, only to be turned away the moment they saw his appearance. He told her about the small moments of grace, the coffee shop owner who sometimes gave them day-old pastries, the librarian who let them stay inside during cold days, pretending not to notice they had nowhere else to go. Victoria listened to every word, and with each story, her resolve strengthened. I want to offer you something, she said finally, and I need you to really hear me before you say no. Marcus tensed. I need someone to manage facilities and maintenance across my pharmaceutical company. 3 buildings, complex equipment, constant repairs and upgrades. It's a legitimate job, Marcus. I'm not inventing this to make you feel better. I've been trying to fill this position for 4 months. She pulled out her phone and showed him the job posting. The salary is $90,000 a year, plus benefits and health insurance. Marcus stared at the screen like it might bite him. Victoria, I've been homeless for 8 months. I have no references, no... You have a degree in mechanical engineering from State University. You worked for Mitchell Corporation for 6 years, with excellent performance reviews. I looked you up while you were getting cleaned up. Your former supervisor, Tom Chen, is actually my second cousin. Small world. I called him an hour ago. Victoria's smile was almost mischievous. He said you were the best engineer he ever worked with, and he was devastated when you had to leave. He'd hire you back tomorrow if his company had the flexibility for Lily's care needs. Mine does. Marcus's hands started shaking. I don't understand. You just met me. I met a father who loves his daughter enough to live on the streets rather than abandon her. I met a man who tried to eat with dignity despite starving. I met someone who apologized for burdening me with his story when he has every right to be angry at a world that failed him. Victoria's voice was steady and sure. I'm a good judge of character, Marcus. It's why my company is worth $3 billion. And I'm telling you, you're exactly who I need. The kitchen door burst open and Daniel ran in wearing his pajamas. Mum, Lily wants to know if she can have hot chocolate, and Rosa said she needs to ask you first. And also, can Lily stay in the room next to mine instead of the blue one because it's closer and we want to play games tomorrow? Victoria laughed, the sound breaking the heavy emotion in the room. Yes to the hot chocolate. And yes, She can stay in the room next to yours if that's okay with Marcus. Can I, Daddy? Lily's voice called from the hallway. Rosa was pushing her wheelchair, and the little girl looked transformed. Clean clothes, brushed hair, her face bright with happiness. Daniel has a PlayStation, and he said he'd teach me how to play. Marcus couldn't speak. He just nodded, tears streaming down his face. Later that night, after the children were asleep and Marcus was settled in his own room, Victoria stood in her home office looking out at the city lights. Her phone buzzed with a text from her assistant. Board meeting tomorrow at 9. Henderson deal needs your approval. Business as usual. Except nothing felt usual anymore. She thought about the chain of events that had led to this moment. If Daniel hadn't noticed Lily, if she'd been too rushed or too focused on her perfect dinner reservation, if she'd listened to the voice in her head that said it wasn't her problem, how many Marcus and Lilies were out there? How many people were one medical emergency, one job loss, one tragedy away from losing everything? Victoria pulled up her laptop and started typing an email to her foundation director. Subject line: Emergency Housing Initiative for Families with Disabled Children. If she could help one family tonight, she could help 100, 1,000. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Rosa. Mr. Marcus is crying in his room. Happy tears, I think. Just thought you should know. Victoria smiled, wiped her own eyes, and went back to her email. Tomorrow she'd change Marcus and Lily's lives officially. Tonight, they'd already changed hers. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Victoria's dining room, casting golden light across the breakfast table. Marcus sat stiffly in borrowed clothes that actually fit, looking like a man still convinced he'd wake up back on the street. Lily sat beside Daniel, both children giggling over their pancakes shaped like Mickey Mouse, Rosa's specialty. Victoria sipped her coffee and watched Marcus try to process his new reality. She'd seen that look before on people's faces when life shifted too dramatically, too quickly. Hope was sometimes harder to accept than despair, because hope required you to believe again. I have meetings until noon, Victoria said casually, but I've arranged for Dr. Sarah Mitchell to come by at 2 o'clock. She's a pediatric neurologist and one of the best in the country. I'd like her to examine Lily, if that's all right with you. Marcus's fork clattered against his plate. Victoria, I can't afford... You're not paying. Consider it part of your employment benefits package. She smiled at his stunned expression. We're starting your paperwork today. Human resources will be here at 3. But first, the doctor. Lily's health is the priority. What Victoria didn't tell him was that Dr. Mitchell owed her a favor, a big one. 2 years ago, Victoria's pharmaceutical company had funded Mitchell's research into experimental treatments for muscular dystrophy when every other investor had walked away. Now that research was saving lives. The doorbell rang at precisely 2 o'clock. Dr. Mitchell arrived with a medical bag and a warm smile that immediately put Lily at ease. Victoria showed them to the library, which she'd converted into a temporary examination room. An hour later, Dr. Mitchell emerged with an expression Victoria couldn't quite read. Can we talk privately? The doctor asked, glancing at Marcus. They stepped into Victoria's study. Dr. Mitchell closed the door and turned with urgent eyes. Victoria, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Where did you find this child? Victoria's stomach dropped. What do you mean? Marcus is her father. They've been homeless. I'm not questioning that he's her father. I'm questioning her medical history. Dr. Mitchell pulled out her tablet, swiping through notes. Lily has markers for Duchenne muscular dystrophy, but her symptoms don't match her apparent treatment history, or lack thereof. According to Marcus, She hasn't seen a specialist in 8 months and hasn't had her medication in 6. But Victoria, this child should be much sicker than she is. Someone's been treating her, and recently. That's impossible. Marcus told me. I believe Marcus believes what he's telling you, but something doesn't add up. Dr. Mitchell's finger traced across her screen. I ran her blood work through our database. Victoria, Lily was enrolled in a clinical trial at Westside Medical Center 18 months ago. An experimental treatment for her exact condition. The trial was suddenly terminated, and all the patients were supposed to be transitioned to standard care. Except Lily never showed up for her transition appointment. She just vanished from the system. Victoria's mind raced. Who ran that trial? A doctor, Raymond Voss. He's still at Westside, heading their neurology department. The name hit Victoria like a physical blow. Raymond Voss. She knew that name. He'd been a consultant for Chen Pharmaceuticals 3 years ago, working on a muscular dystrophy project. He'd been brilliant, but erratic, pushing for shortcuts that made Victoria's ethics committee nervous. She'd eventually ended the contract. Get Marcus in here, Victoria said quietly. Now. When Marcus entered, confusion written all over his face, Victoria gestured for him to sit. Marcus, I need you to tell me everything about Lily's medical treatment. Everything. Starting from her diagnosis. Marcus looked between the two women, fear creeping into his expression. What's wrong? Is Lily okay? Lily's fine. Better than fine, actually, which is what we need to understand. Victoria kept her voice gentle but firm. Please, start from the beginning. Marcus took a shaky breath. Lily was diagnosed when she was 2. We were devastated, but we found this clinical trial at Westside Medical. Dr. Voss was running it, some new treatment that was showing incredible results. Lily responded beautifully. For a year, she was getting stronger instead of weaker. We thought we'd found a miracle. What happened? Dr. Mitchell asked softly. The trial ended abruptly. Dr. Voss called us in, said the funding had been pulled, and we'd need to transition to standard treatment. But when we showed up for our first appointment with the new doctor, everything went wrong. Marcus's hands clenched into fists. They accused me of forging documents, said there was no record of Lily ever being in the trial. They threatened to call Child Protective Services, said I was making up stories about experimental treatments and putting Lily at risk by not following proper medical protocol. Victoria leaned forward. What did you do? I panicked. My wife had already left. I was barely holding on to my job, and now they were threatening to take Lily away. So we ran. I grabbed Lily and we left. I thought if I could just find Dr. Voss, he could explain everything, prove that we weren't crazy. Marcus's voice broke. But Dr. Voss refused to see me. Had security escort me out of the building. That's when everything fell apart. I became paranoid about doctors, about hospitals. I thought they were all trying to take Lily from me. I lost my job because I was so distracted. Lost the house. Lost everything. Dr. Mitchell and Victoria exchanged loaded glances. Marcus, Victoria said carefully, what if I told you that Dr. Voss erased the trial records deliberately? What if the trial wasn't officially sanctioned, and when he got caught, he made all evidence of his patients disappear to cover his tracks? Marcus stared at her, his face draining of colour. I need to make some calls, Victoria said, already reaching for her phone. Dr. Mitchell, can you stay with Marcus and Lily? I don't want them out of your sight. 3 hours later, Victoria's study looked like a war room. Her company's legal team had arrived, along with 2 investigators and a representative from the Medical Ethics Board. The pieces were falling into place, and the picture they formed was damning. Dr. Raymond Voss had been running unauthorized trials using Victoria's company's experimental drugs he'd stolen samples of during his consultation period. When Chen Pharmaceuticals' ethics board started asking questions, he'd panicked and erased all evidence, including patient records. 12 families had been affected. 12 children who'd shown miraculous improvement suddenly cut off from treatment and gaslit into thinking the trials never existed. Victoria's fury was cold and controlled. I want him arrested, today. And I want every one of those 12 families found and brought back into treatment, legitimately this time, with full ethical oversight. Her lead attorney nodded. We're already coordinating with the DA's office. Voss will be in custody by tonight. But Victoria wasn't done. She turned to her foundation director. I want a fund established, full medical care, housing assistance, and educational support for every family affected. And I want Marcus hired as the patient advocate for the program. He knows what these families went through. He can help them navigate the system. Marcus, who'd been sitting silently through all of this, finally spoke. You're offering me another job? I'm offering you purpose, Victoria corrected. You'll still manage facilities. That job's real and it's yours. But this is your calling, Marcus. You survived hell to protect your daughter. Now help other parents do the same. By evening, the news had broken. Dr. Voss was arrested on 15 counts of medical fraud and endangerment. The story dominated every channel. Billionaire CEO exposes rogue doctor, saves dozen families. But in Victoria's living room, away from the cameras and chaos, something quieter was happening. Lily was teaching Daniel a card game. Rosa was bringing them cookies. And Marcus sat beside Victoria on the couch, both of them watching the children play. I don't know how to thank you, Marcus whispered. You already have. You reminded me why I built this company in the first place, to help people, not just make money. Victoria smiled at the children. Besides, Daniel's never been happier. He always wanted a sister. Marcus wiped his eyes. So what happens now? Now? You start your job on Monday. Lily begins proper treatment on Tuesday. You move into one of the company's family apartments until you find something permanent, and we figure out the rest as we go. Victoria stood and offered her hand. Welcome to the family, Marcus. Both of you. As they shook hands, Daniel called out, Mom, can we have movie night? Please? Lily's never seen the Lion King *. Victoria laughed, the sound full and genuine. Movie night it is. Later, after the children had fallen asleep during the second movie, Victoria tucked them both in. Daniel in his room, Lily in the guest room that was quickly becoming hers. She found Marcus standing in the hallway, staring at his sleeping daughter with an expression of pure wonder. She's safe, Victoria said softly. You both are. You can rest now. Marcus nodded, unable to speak past the emotion. As Victoria walked back to her own room, she thought about the chain of grace that had brought them here. One dinner, one moment of compassion, one child's simple question. Can we help them? The smallest acts of kindness could change everything. They could save lives, restore dignity, rebuild hope. Sometimes the greatest investments weren't measured in dollars, but in the courage to see another person suffering and refuse to look away. Victoria fell asleep that night with a smile on her face and peace in her heart. Life will place people in your path who need exactly what you have to give, and sometimes you need exactly what they have to teach you. Compassion isn't about having all the answers or fixing everything perfectly. It's about showing up with an open heart and saying, "You're not alone. I see you. You matter." The broken places in this world don't heal because someone swoops in with all the solutions. They heal because someone cares enough to sit in the mess with another human being and say, "We'll figure this out together." Your kindness might be the miracle someone's been praying for.